Hi guys, tonight's story begins in a distant forgotten age. Settle in, and let history slowly fade you into sleep. This is boring history for sleep. Relax, and step gently into the ancient world. Tonight, history becomes calm, quiet, and sleepy. Let the past carry you softly into sleep. In tonight's slow and peaceful history story, we travel to a land where life moved with steady footsteps instead of sudden change. A place where each sunrise looked much like the one before it, where familiar hands repeated familiar work, and where the passing seasons quietly shaped one of the longest-lasting civilizations the world has ever known. The air is still cool before dawn. The stars remain above the wide Egyptian sky, fading little by little as the eastern horizon slowly grows pale. The Nile rests quietly between its banks, its dark water reflecting only a few remaining points of light. Nothing feels hurried. Even the river seems to move with patient certainty, as though it has followed this path so many thousands of times that it no longer needs to think about where it is going. A soft breeze crosses the water. It carries the smell of damp earth mixed with reeds growing along the riverbank. Somewhere nearby, a bird stirs among the papyrus. Another answers from farther away. Their calls are gentle, almost hidden beneath the silence. The villages remain asleep. Mud brick homes sit close together beneath the fading stars. Their flat roofs are cool from the night air. Narrow paths wind between the houses, marked by countless footsteps that have worn the dust smooth over many years. Inside one home, a family still rests. The room is simple. Its walls are thick enough to keep some of yesterday's heat outside. Woven mats cover the floor. Clay jars stand neatly against one wall. A small basket of grain waits beside a grinding stone that will soon begin its daily work. No one rushes to wake. There is no need. Morning arrives every day. The work will still be there. It always is. One by one, quiet sounds begin to replace the silence. A mother opens her eyes before anyone else. She sits slowly, careful not to wake the youngest child sleeping nearby. She listens for a moment. Outside, she hears another wooden door opening somewhere down the lane. Another family has begun its morning. She stands and adjusts the simple linen cloth around her shoulders before lighting a small oil lamp. Its tiny flame pushes back only a little darkness, enough to find the tools she uses every day. The lamp itself is ordinary. Its shape has changed little from the lamp used by her own mother. And perhaps by her grandmother before that. Many things in Egypt remain the same because they already work well. There is comfort in that. There is safety in doing familiar things. The grain basket is heavier than it will be later in the week. She kneels beside the grinding stone. Soon the first quiet rhythm of the morning begins. Stone against grain. Back and forth. Again. 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 The sound is soft. Not unpleasant. It is a sound heard every morning across countless villages beside the Nile. Thousands of hands perform the same motion. Thousands of homes wake to the same quiet rhythm. Long before the sun appears above the horizon, Egypt is already beginning another day built upon repetition. Perhaps that word sounds simple. Repetition. Doing the same thing again. But here, repetition is not failure to change. It is the foundation of survival. The river returns. The crops return. The floods return. The work returns. Even hope often arrives in familiar ways. For the people who live here, the greatest comfort is not surprise. It is knowing what tomorrow will probably ask of them. Outside, the eastern sky grows brighter. A father steps into the cool air. His sandals leave fresh prints in the dust already marked by yesterday's footsteps. He stretches quietly. His back is stiff. Years of lifting baskets, carrying tools, bending over fields, and repairing walls have left small reminders throughout his body. Nothing hurts enough to stop him. Everything aches enough to remind him that another day has begun. He walks toward the river carrying empty jars. Other villagers appear from nearby homes. No one speaks very loudly. Voices remain soft during these early moments. People nod to one another. Some exchange a few quiet words. Many simply continue walking. They have met each other here every morning for years. There is little need for long conversation. Routine itself feels like company. The river greets them all in the same gentle way. Its surface catches the growing light. Tiny ripples spread outward as jars lower into the water. The coolness reaches their hands. For just a few moments before the day's heat arrives, the air feels fresh. This small comfort never lasts very long. Yet it returns every morning. That is enough. Back inside the village, bread dough is beginning to rise. Clay ovens slowly warm. Smoke curls upward into the brightening sky. The smell of grain and baking bread drifts through narrow streets. Children begin to wake. Their mornings are quieter than many people imagine. There is no rushing toward school as in distant futures. Instead, they slowly become part of the rhythm already surrounding them. Some help carry water. Some gather kindling. Others watch older family members while learning the movements that one day will become their own daily routine. A little girl watches her mother shape small rounds of dough. She imitates the motions with tiny hands. Her bread is uneven. It does not matter. She smiles. Her mother smiles back. Learning happens slowly. Skill grows through repetition. Not through one lesson. Not through one perfect day. But through thousands of mornings just like this one. Across Egypt, millions of similar moments quietly unfold. This civilization is enormous. Yet it depends upon countless ordinary people completing ordinary tasks. History often remembers great monuments. It remembers kings. It remembers temples rising toward the bright sky. But those wonders rest upon invisible foundations built by people whose names disappeared long ago. Someone mixed the mud for each brick. Someone carried the baskets. Someone sharpened the copper tools. Someone baked the bread that fed the workers. Someone repaired sandals worn thin by dusty roads. Someone watched sleeping children while others worked beneath the sun. Their days repeated themselves again and again. Because of that repetition, larger dreams became possible. The first sunlight touches the tops of distant palm trees. Golden light spreads slowly across fields waiting for another day's labor. Farmers already know what needs to be done. There are canals to inspect. Banks to strengthen. Animals to feed. Young plants to watch. Nothing surprises them. Each season carries its own familiar responsibilities. The Nile teaches patience. It also teaches memory. Every flood leaves signs. Every harvest leaves lessons. People remember where water flowed most strongly. They remember which fields remained damp longest. They remember which seeds grew well after certain floods. Knowledge is stored not only in writing. It is stored inside habits. Inside routines repeated across generations. A young farmer walks beside his father. Neither speaks much. The older man's pace is steady. The younger quietly matches it. They have followed this path many hundreds of times. One day the younger man will walk it alone. Then perhaps with his own son. The road will still be here. The fields will still wait. The sun will still rise over the eastern bank. Only the footsteps will belong to different people. The earth itself remembers. Dust settles over sandals. Footprints overlap older footprints. Wind softens their edges before new travelers replace them. Nothing remains unchanged forever. Yet many things return so often they almost seem eternal. In another part of the village, a scribe prepares for his own work. His life is different from that of the farmers. His hands carry fewer calluses. His shoulders ache from sitting rather than lifting. Still, repetition fills his days as completely as anyone else's. He smooths fresh sheets of papyrus. He checks his brushes. He mixes ink. Black. Red. Simple colors. Simple tools. Each must be prepared carefully. Writing is patient work. Symbols flow one after another across the page. Carelessness wastes precious materials. Steady attention saves both time and effort. The scribe copies familiar records. Grain. Workers. Tools. Deliveries. Measurements. Numbers. Again and again. Many pages resemble yesterday's work. Tomorrow's pages will resemble today's. Yet every record matters. Because order depends upon careful repetition. Nearby, builders begin gathering at a work site. Some carry wooden mallets. Others lift ropes woven from plant fibers. Several shoulder baskets that will soon hold limestone fragments or sand. No one rushes. Heavy work performed too quickly only brings exhaustion sooner. Experienced workers know this. They have learned to move with measured strength. The oldest among them rarely wastes emotion. Watching him feels almost peaceful. Every lift. Every step. Every pause. Everything happens with quiet purpose. The younger workers notice without realizing it. One day they too will move this way. The morning continues. The heat slowly grows. Shadows become shorter. The cool hours disappear. Sweat forms across brows. Linen clothing darkens slightly where it meets warm skin. Dust clings to ankles. Hands grow rough beneath steady labor. Still the work continues. Not because anyone expects today to be extraordinary, but because every ordinary day contributes to something larger than itself. This idea lives quietly inside Egyptian civilization. Great achievements are not created by one remarkable afternoon. They emerge from countless ordinary mornings. Each one almost identical to the last. Each one carrying another small piece of the future. Even the great stone monuments begin with repeated motions. A hammer strikes. Another follows. A worker lifts. Another lowers. Ropes tighten. Voices call simple instructions. Nothing dramatic. Nothing sudden. Only steady effort. Hour after hour. Day after day. Year after year. The rhythm itself becomes almost musical. Not loud music. Not joyful celebration. Just the calm rhythm of people working together because they have done so many times before. The sun climbs higher. Its warmth settles across the land like a heavy blanket. The stones themselves begin storing heat. Walking barefoot becomes impossible. Sandals protect tired feet from burning ground. Workers pause occasionally beneath narrow strips of shade. Water passes quietly from one person to another. No one drinks too quickly. Everyone understands the day's long journey toward evening. Energy must be saved. Strength must last. A fisherman pushes his narrow boat away from shore. The Nile carries him gently. He studies the water with patient eyes. Fish do not always appear where one expects. Still, experience teaches him where to wait. Where currents meet. Where reeds grow thick. Where shadows hide beneath overhanging plants. He has watched this river since childhood. The river has become almost like another teacher. It repeats its lessons endlessly. Those willing to notice slowly become wise. Hours pass almost unnoticed. That is one of repetition's quiet gifts. When life follows familiar rhythms, time begins to flow gently rather than sharply. The mind settles. The hands remember. The body learns. Even silence feels comfortable. By midday the village rests beneath intense sunlight. Many workers pause briefly. Some eat bread with onions. Others share dried fish. Clay jars offer cool water gathered before dawn. People sit close to walls where shadows remain longest. Conversation stays gentle. There is little need to fill every quiet moment with words. The air itself seems sleepy. Even animals search for shade. Dogs stretch beneath carts. Goats stand motionless beside mud walls. Birds become quieter. Only insects continue their endless songs beneath the blazing sky. Far away, the river continues moving. Always moving. Always returning. Its steady presence reminds everyone that tomorrow will arrive much like today. And for the people of Egypt, that quiet certainty is one of life's greatest treasures. The afternoon drifts forward with slow determination, and the same patient rhythm continues beneath the warm Egyptian sun. The afternoon light settles gently over the land, turning the pale stone and dusty paths a warmer shade of gold. The air feels heavier now. Even the wind seems slower, as though it, too, has grown tired beneath the steady weight of the sun. Across the fields beside the Nile, people continue the work they began before dawn. There is no sudden change in the rhythm of the day. There is only the quiet understanding that every task will be finished one careful movement at a time. A farmer kneels beside a narrow irrigation channel. The water moves quietly between banks shaped by many seasons of patient hands. He presses loose earth into a weak place where the current has begun to wear away the edge. His fingers know exactly how firmly to pack the damp soil. He does not stop to wonder whether he is doing it correctly. He has watched this work since he was very young. Before he ever carried a basket, before he was strong enough to lift a hoe, he stood beside older family members and watched these same careful motions. Learning in Egypt often begins with watching. Children do not receive long speeches about how life should be lived. They simply grow up inside it. They hear the grinding stones before sunrise. They smell fresh bread baking each morning. They walk the same narrow paths until every turn becomes familiar. Little by little, the rhythm of the village becomes the rhythm of their own hearts. Nearby, another farmer guides 2 oxen through soft earth. The animals move with slow confidence. They know the path almost as well as the man who walks beside them. Their pace never changes very much. They lean steadily into the wooden plow, and the rich soil opens behind them in neat lines that stretch toward the horizon. The sound is simple. Soft footsteps. Wood creaking. A distant bird. The quiet splash of water entering another canal. Nothing competes for attention. Everything belongs together. Farther down the river, women wash linen along the bank. The cloth disappears beneath the cool water before being lifted again into the sunlight. Droplets fall back into the Nile with tiny sparkling sounds. The fabric is rubbed carefully against smooth stones, then rinsed again and again until the dust of many working days slowly disappears. The work asks for patience. It cannot be hurried. If the cloth is twisted too roughly, it wears out sooner. If it is not cleaned well, tomorrow's heat will make yesterday's dust even more uncomfortable. So the hands move steadily. Dip. Wash. Rinse. Lift. Repeat. The rhythm becomes almost peaceful. One woman pauses for a moment and looks across the wide river. The water catches the afternoon light in thousands of tiny flashes. Fishing boats drift quietly with the current. Palm trees stand almost perfectly still along the opposite bank. Beyond them lies the endless desert, calm and silent beneath the bright sky. The desert never seems impatient. It simply waits. Generation after generation, it watches villages rise, fields grow green, children become parents, and old people quietly disappear into memory. Yet the sand remains. Perhaps this teaches another lesson. Not every part of life needs to change. Some things simply endure. Back inside the village, the workshops remain busy despite the heat. A potter sits before his wheel. His hands are covered with cool clay. The wheel turns slowly beneath practiced fingers. A lump of earth begins to rise into the shape of a storage jar. The walls grow thinner. The mouth becomes wider. The curve smooths beneath gentle pressure. He does not need to measure every movement with his eyes. His hands remember. Years of repetition have taught them what to do long before his thoughts arrive. Another jar joins dozens already drying nearby. Each one looks similar. Each one is quietly useful. Most will never be admired. Most will simply carry grain, water, oil, or beer from one season into another. Yet without these ordinary jars, daily life would become much harder. History often celebrates rare treasures. But civilizations are held together by common objects used every single day. Across the room, another craftsman repairs woven baskets. Some have carried vegetables. Others have held fish fresh from the Nile. Many have transported stones, mud, grain, or firewood. The reeds have begun to loosen after years of faithful service. Instead of throwing them away, he patiently strengthens each weak place with fresh weaving. Nothing is wasted if it can still serve. Time itself feels valuable. Materials feel valuable. Human effort feels valuable. This way of thinking grows naturally from a life built upon repetition. If something has served well yesterday, perhaps it will serve well tomorrow too. In another corner, copper tools rest upon a wooden table. A metal worker sharpens their edges with careful attention. The ringing sound of stone against copper echoes softly through the workshop. Not loudly. Not harshly. Just enough to remind everyone that another tool is becoming ready for tomorrow's work. Axes. Chisels. Knives. Adzes. Each has its own purpose. Each depends upon regular care. Even the strongest tool slowly becomes dull. So maintenance becomes another quiet form of repetition. Nothing useful lasts without attention. The same is true for people. As afternoon slowly moves toward evening, tiredness settles into every muscle. Builders straighten their backs and roll their shoulders. Farmers wipe dust from their faces. Boatmen stretch stiff legs after many hours standing upon narrow wooden decks. The body keeps careful records of every movement. Small aches collect over months. Years add their own gentle weight. Still, most people continue because tomorrow will ask for the same strength again. There is dignity in this endurance. Not dramatic courage. Not loud determination. Simply the quiet decision to rise once more when morning arrives. A young apprentice walks beside an older builder carrying limestone chips. The basket feels heavy. His shoulders burn. He shifts the weight from one arm to the other. The older man notices but says little. Instead, he adjusts the younger worker's grip with calm hands. Just a small correction. The basket becomes easier to carry. No long explanation follows. Only another shared walk across the dusty ground. Knowledge often passes this way. Patiently. Silently. One careful example after another. The apprentice may not remember this afternoon many years from now. But his body will remember. His hands will repeat the improved movement without thinking. That is how experience quietly grows. The great monuments of Egypt are often imagined as the work of extraordinary moments. Yet the truth feels softer. Every massive stone rested upon thousands of ordinary actions. Someone tied each rope. Someone checked each knot. Someone swept loose gravel from a pathway. Someone repaired a broken sled. Someone filled water jars before sunrise. Every small task mattered. Not because it was remarkable, but because it happened faithfully every day. The sun begins its slow journey toward the western horizon. The light softens. Long shadows stretch across the fields. The harsh brightness slowly gives way to warmer colors. People notice without speaking. Even after countless evenings, this gentle change remains welcome. Work does not stop all at once. Instead, it slowly unwinds. A field is finished. Another row is completed. One final basket is carried. A last bundle of reeds is tied. The day's labor quietly folds itself into memory. Along the riverbank, fishermen pull their nets from the water. Some are heavy. Others are almost empty. Neither result brings great celebration or deep disappointment. The river has generous days and quiet days. Tomorrow offers another chance. The Nile teaches patience because it cannot be hurried. It asks people to trust long cycles rather than single moments. Children run to greet returning parents. Their footsteps are lighter than those of the adults. They carry fewer worries. Even so, they already understand parts of the village rhythm. Some eagerly help carry baskets home. Others collect dropped pieces of firewood. A little boy proudly carries a single onion as though it were a great treasure. His father smiles gently. The onion reaches home safely. That is enough. Small successes are warmly welcomed. Evening slowly settles across the village. The air cools little by little. People gather outside their homes while ovens warm for the evening meal. The smell of baking bread rises once again. This scent has greeted Egyptians for countless generations. Fresh grain. Warm clay. Wood smoke. These familiar smells become part of memory itself. Nearby, an elderly woman grinds herbs with a smooth stone. The leaves release quiet fragrances into the evening air. Simple meals are prepared with care. Bread. Beans. Onions. Fish. Perhaps a few dates when they are available. Nothing extravagant. Yet after a long day beneath the Egyptian sun, these familiar foods bring deep comfort. Families sit together on woven mats. Oil lamps flicker softly as daylight fades. The gentle flames cast moving shadows upon mud brick walls. Children speak quietly about small adventures from the day. An older brother laughs softly after remembering a stubborn goat that refused to leave the shade. His laughter is brief. Soon the peaceful rhythm returns. Nobody feels the need to speak constantly. Silence is not empty here. It is simply another companion at the evening meal. Above them, the first stars quietly appear. The same stars watched their grandparents. The same stars will watch children yet unborn. For generations, people have ended their days beneath this familiar sky. Perhaps this is another reason Egyptian civilization endured for so long. Its people lived inside patterns that connected yesterday with tomorrow. Their lives were not free from hardship. Heat exhausted them. Illness visited families without warning. Floods were sometimes too high, sometimes too low. Harvests could disappoint. Loved ones grew old. Children sometimes became adults too soon. Yet through all these uncertainties, daily routine offered something steady. The oven was lit. The grain was ground. The river was visited. The tools were repaired. The sandals were placed beside the sleeping mat each evening, ready for another dawn. These repeated acts quietly reminded people that life continued. A father carefully repairs the leather strap of his sandals before sleep. The stitching has loosened after many miles of walking. His fingers work slowly beneath the light of a small oil lamp. The task takes only a little while. When it is finished, he sets the sandals neatly beside the doorway. Tomorrow morning he will reach for them without thinking. Another ordinary act. Another small preparation for another familiar day. Outside, the village grows quieter with each passing moment. The workshops fall silent. The oxen settle into their resting places. The last fishing boats are tied securely along the riverbank. A cool breeze moves gently through the reeds, carrying with it the soft scent of water and damp earth. The Nile continues its endless journey beneath the moonlight. It asks for nothing. It promises nothing with words. Yet year after year, century after century, it quietly returns, inviting the people of Egypt to return with it to the same fields, the same paths, the same patient work that, through endless repetition, slowly shaped one of history's most enduring civilizations. Night settles gently across the valley, not all at once, but little by little, as though the land itself is slowly closing its eyes. The warmth stored inside the stone walls begins to drift back into the evening air. The day's bright colors soften beneath the pale light of the moon. Dust that rose beneath countless sandals now rests quietly upon the ground once more. The village grows still. One lamp after another disappears behind small windows. Voices become fewer. The last conversations fade into soft whispers before silence gently takes their place. Only the river continues without pause. Its water slips through the darkness with the same patient rhythm it carried before anyone living here was born. Long before the first mud brick was shaped by careful hands, the Nile followed this path. Long after these homes become memories beneath the sand, it will continue to move toward the distant sea. For the people of Egypt, this quiet certainty is part of everyday life. The river is not simply water. It is a companion that never forgets its way. Inside one modest home, a family prepares for sleep. Their evening meal has ended. The clay bowls have been rinsed with precious water and placed upside down to dry. A woven basket has been covered to keep tomorrow's bread safe from insects. The grinding stone rests silently where it has worked since before sunrise. Nothing in the room appears grand. The walls are made from mud mixed with straw. The roof is supported by simple wooden beams. A few clay jars stand neatly in one corner. A woven mat waits upon the floor. Yet everything has its place. Order brings comfort. Familiar surroundings allow tired minds to rest. The youngest child is already asleep. His breathing is slow and steady. One small hand rests upon a folded linen cloth that serves as a pillow. His day has been filled with little discoveries. Watching birds beside the river. Carrying tiny bundles of reeds. Following older children along dusty paths. Tomorrow he will wake and find another day that looks very much like this one. Without realizing it, he is already learning the rhythm that has shaped generations before him. His mother quietly folds the linen garments worn throughout the day. Each piece has been washed, dried beneath the warm sun, and carefully repaired many times. Small tears have been stitched before they became larger ones. Loose threads have been tied instead of ignored. Nothing is discarded simply because it has grown old. Life beside the Nile teaches respect for useful things. Every object carries the memory of careful hands. Outside, an elderly man sits alone beneath the evening sky. He has finished every task expected of him. His knees ache softly after many decades of walking fields and lifting baskets. He welcomes the cool air against his face. Above him, countless stars slowly brighten. He knows many of them. Not by written names. Not through careful maps. But through years of quiet observation. He has watched these same lights appear at the end of nearly every working day. They have become old companions. Sometimes he remembers his father sitting in almost the same place. His father also ended long days beneath these stars. He too listened to the insects singing beyond the fields. He too watched the moon rise above the distant desert. The faces change. The generations pass. Yet the evening remains wonderfully familiar. Perhaps this is one of the hidden strengths of repetition. It allows each generation to feel connected to those who came before. Not through grand speeches. Not through magnificent ceremonies. Simply through ordinary habits shared across many lifetimes. Far across the village, a watchman begins his quiet walk. His work is different from that of the farmers. While others sleep, he remains awake. His sandals make soft sounds against the packed earth. He carries a simple staff polished smooth by years of use. Every night he follows nearly the same path. He checks gates. He listens for unusual sounds. He pauses now and then to study the darkness. Most nights are peaceful. Nothing unexpected happens. Still, he continues. Repetition often asks people to perform necessary work even when nothing appears to be changing. His careful routine allows everyone else to sleep more peacefully. Along the riverbank, several fishing boats rock gently against their wooden posts. The ropes creak softly with each movement of the water. Nets hang nearby, drying beneath the night air. Tomorrow, before sunrise, they will be gathered once again. Small tiers will be tied. Loose knots will be tightened. Then they will return to the river that has carried them through so many seasons. A fisherman sleeping nearby dreams quietly. Perhaps he dreams of calm water. Perhaps he dreams of large fish gathering beneath his boat. Or perhaps his dreams are as gentle and ordinary as his waking life. Dreams often borrow from familiar days. Even in sleep, repetition continues its quiet work. Beyond the green fields, the desert stretches beneath the moonlight. Its sand appears almost silver. The hills remain silent. No smoke rises there. No voices drift across the open ground. Only the wind moves slowly over ancient stone. The desert waits with endless patience. Its silence reminds the people beside the river that life is precious where water flows. Each morning, they return to the Nile because they know what lies beyond its reach. Dry earth. Harsh sun. Long distances without relief. The river offers another possibility. Steady work. Reliable water. Fields that answer careful effort with growing grain. In this way, repetition becomes a quiet agreement between people and nature. The river returns. The people return. Together they continue another year. Inside another home, a young apprentice rubs oil into his sore hands. The skin across his palms has begun to harden. Only a few years ago his fingers were smooth. Now small calluses have appeared where rope and stone have pressed against them day after day. He studies them for a moment beneath the light of the lamp. These marks are new. Yet he has seen similar hands throughout his entire childhood. His father carried them. His uncles carried them. His grandfather's hands were rougher still. Without anyone explaining it, he understands what these changes mean. He is becoming part of the long chain of workers whose quiet labor holds the kingdom together. He does not think about history. He thinks about tomorrow. There will be more stones to lift. More ropes to pull. More careful instructions from older builders. The future arrives one ordinary day at a time. Nearby, a young woman prepares grain for the coming morning. She pours kernels from one clay jar into another, checking carefully for small stones that might have found their way inside during harvest. The task asks for close attention. Her fingers move steadily through the grain. She does not hurry. The lamp flickers softly. Outside, crickets sing. Inside, only the gentle sound of grain slipping through her hands fills the room. These quiet moments are rarely remembered. No monument records them. No scribe writes their details. Yet without them, the morning meal could not be prepared. Without the morning meal, the workers would lack strength. Without strong workers, canals would weaken, fields would suffer, and buildings would remain unfinished. Small actions quietly support great achievements. This truth repeats itself throughout Egyptian life. Elsewhere in the village, a scribe reviews the records completed during the day. The papyrus lies neatly upon a low wooden table. Columns of symbols stretch across its surface with careful order. Grain counted. Tools issued. Workers present. Supplies delivered. The records appear simple. Yet tomorrow another page will be added. Then another. Then another. Over many years, these ordinary notes become the memory of an entire community. The scribe gently rolls the finished papyrus and places it inside a storage basket. He blows out the lamp. Darkness quietly fills the room. Above him, the moon continues its slow journey across the sky. Time itself seems gentler here. Not because life is easy, but because every season follows another in patient order. The flood arrives. The water slowly falls. Seeds are planted. Shoots appear. Grain ripens. Harvest fills the storage jars. Then another flood begins the cycle once again. Children grow while watching these patterns. Old people grow peaceful after living them many times. The rhythm becomes almost part of breathing. A traveler arriving from far away might believe that nothing changes in Egypt. But those who live here understand the quieter truth. Everything changes. Children become adults. Parents grow older. Fields shift after each flood. Homes require repair. Trees grow taller. New babies are welcomed. Old stories lose familiar voices. Change never disappears. It simply moves slowly enough that daily life continues to feel familiar. Perhaps this is why repetition became so deeply woven into Egyptian civilization. It offered stability while the years quietly carried people forward. No one could stop time. No one expected to. Instead, they trusted the routines that had carried their families through generations. They woke before dawn. They greeted the river. They worked beneath the sun. They shared bread at evening. They rested beneath the stars. Then they began again. Night deepens. The breeze grows cooler. Palm leaves rustle softly above sleeping homes. Somewhere in the distance, a donkey shifts quietly before settling once more. The village rests together beneath the vast Egyptian sky. Tomorrow's work already waits, though no one is thinking about it now. The baskets can remain empty until morning. The boats can rest beside the shore. The fields can sleep beneath the moonlight. Even the tools seem peaceful where they lie, cleaned, and ready for another day. Far out upon the Nile, moonlight dances across the slow-moving water. The river makes almost no sound at all. It simply continues. Patient. Steady. Unhurried. Much like the civilization growing along its banks. A civilization not built in moments of sudden greatness, but in millions upon millions of repeated acts, hands grinding grain before sunrise, feet walking familiar dusty paths, quiet voices greeting neighbors, worn sandals crossing cool stone floors, and families ending each day with the calm certainty that when dawn gently returned, they would once again find comfort in the familiar rhythm that had carried Egypt forward for generations beyond counting. The darkest hours of the night pass quietly over the valley. The moon drifts a little farther toward the western sky. Its pale light rests upon the sleeping fields, upon the silent workshops, and upon the roofs of countless mud brick homes. Almost every lamp has gone dark. The village breathes together in peaceful stillness. Only a few people remain awake. A mother gently comforts a restless child. A watchman pauses beside the entrance to a storage building, listening to the soft sounds carried by the night breeze. A fisherman, unable to sleep for a little while, sits beside his boat and watches the water move beneath the stars. None of them feel alone. The river is always nearby. Even without looking, they know where it is. Its quiet presence has become part of every hour of life. For thousands of years, the Nile has never been simply a river. It is the steady heartbeat beneath every ordinary day. As the night grows cooler, a thin layer of dew begins to settle upon the reeds near the riverbank. Tiny drops gather slowly along narrow leaves until they catch the moonlight like scattered pieces of polished stone. The air smells different now. The warmth of baked earth has softened. The scent of damp soil rises gently from the fields. There is the faint smell of river water, fresh reeds, and distant smoke from cooking fires that faded hours ago. These quiet scents greet the people of Egypt every night. Few stop to notice them. They have become as familiar as breathing. Inside one home, an elderly woman sleeps lightly. Years have changed the way she rests. She wakes for a few moments, listening without opening her eyes. She hears the wind against the walls. She hears someone turning over on a nearby sleeping mat. Far away, she hears a night bird calling across the river. Then she closes her eyes again. These sounds are comforting because they have remained the same for most of her life. She remembers hearing nearly identical nights as a little girl. The voices inside the house were different then. Her grandparents were alive. Her own parents were young. She slept beside brothers and sisters who now have families of their own. Time has quietly rearranged the people around her. Yet the sounds of Egypt remain wonderfully familiar. The same breeze. The same river. The same insects singing beneath the stars. Memory itself often follows repetition. A familiar sound can carry someone gently backward through many years. Long before sunrise, movement begins once again. Not suddenly. Not all at once. One household stirs. Then another. Then another. The village wakes like a field slowly filling with morning light. An old rooster calls from somewhere beyond the nearest homes. Another answers from farther away. The sky is still dark blue, but the eastern horizon has begun to lose its deepest shadows. Morning always arrives patiently. No one commands it. No one can delay it. A woman sits up quietly and reaches for the small oil lamp beside her. Its flame flickers to life. Golden light dances across the mud walls. The room looks almost exactly as it did yesterday morning. The same baskets. The same jars. The same woven mats. The same stone grinder waiting patiently for another day's work. She smiles softly without realizing it. There is comfort in beginning where yesterday ended. She pours grain into the upper stone. The familiar sound returns. Stone moving against stone. A slow circle. Another slow circle. Then another. The rhythm fills the quiet room. Across the village, dozens of grinding stones begin speaking together. Their sounds drip gently into the cool dawn air. No one has planned this music. It simply happens because families rise at nearly the same hour every morning. It is one of the first voices of Egypt greeting a new day. Nearby, a small boy rubs sleep from his eyes. He watches his mother work. For a few moments he simply listens. He has heard this sound every morning since the day he was born. One day, if he lives a long life, he may hear it thousands more times. Perhaps he will hardly notice it. Yet many years later, if he hears another grinding stone in another village, the sound may instantly bring him home again. Routine quietly shapes memory. Outside, the eastern sky becomes pale silver. Birds begin leaving the reeds. Some fly low across the calm water. Others disappear into the palm trees that line the riverbank. The world wakes without hurry. The first farmers step onto the dusty paths. Their sandals leave fresh prints over yesterday's fading footprints. Some carry hoes across their shoulders. Others balance baskets with practiced ease. No one needs directions. Their feet already know where they are going. The paths themselves have been worn smooth by generations. Each journey follows countless earlier journeys. There is something deeply peaceful about walking a familiar road. The eyes need not search for every stone. The body remembers where to step. The mind becomes free to wander quietly. A father and daughter walk together toward a small field. She carries only a light basket. He carries the heavier tools. Their conversation is soft. They speak about simple things. Whether the onions have grown well. Whether a neighbor's goat has recovered from illness. Whether today's breeze may keep the afternoon slightly cooler. Ordinary conversations suit ordinary mornings. Neither expects the day to become famous. Neither hopes for great adventure. There is satisfaction in caring well for familiar responsibilities. As they reach the fields, the first sunlight touches the tops of the growing grain. Each tiny stalk glows for just a moment before the light spreads across the entire valley. Drops of dew sparkle briefly before disappearing into the warmth of the new day. The farmer pauses. Not because he has forgotten his work. Simply because this quiet sight has greeted him for many years. He never grows tired of it. Beauty does not always come from rare events. Sometimes it appears every morning. Sometimes people notice it. Sometimes they simply carry it quietly inside themselves. Nearby, another farmer bends to examine the soil. He scoops a little into his hand. It feels cool beneath the surface. The flood months have long since passed, but their gift remains. Rich black earth still holds enough moisture to nourish growing plants. The farmer nods gently. The field is healthy. There is work to do, but the land is answering faithful care with quiet generosity. He begins removing small weeds. The movement is slow. Reach. Pull. Shake away loose earth. Place the weeds into a basket. Reach again. The task repeats itself many hundreds of times. By itself, one small weed seems unimportant. Left alone, many weeds slowly steal strength from the crop. Egyptian life often depends upon small actions repeated faithfully. The same lesson appears everywhere. Canals must be cleaned before they become blocked. Roofs must be repaired before rain finds tiny openings. Tools must be sharpened before they become useless. Relationships must be cared for through ordinary kindness. Nothing stays strong without gentle attention. Along another path, merchants begin preparing for the day's journey. Donkeys stand patiently while bundles are tied across their backs. The loads are balanced carefully. Too much weight on one side will make the journey harder for both animal and traveler. Experience has taught this lesson many times. The merchants check every knot. They count every package. They drink deeply before leaving the village. Roads across Egypt are long. Dust follows every traveler. The journey itself becomes another familiar rhythm. Walk. Rest. Walk again. Drink water. Adjust the load. Continue. By evening another village will appear. Different faces. Different homes. Yet many of the same daily routines. Children playing beside doorways. Bread baking inside clay ovens. Workers returning from fields. The pattern stretches far beyond a single village. It joins countless communities together along the Nile. In one workshop, the smell of fresh wood fills the morning air. A carpenter studies a piece of sycamore. He runs his fingers across its grain before making the first careful cut. Wood is precious. Mistakes cannot simply be ignored. Each movement deserves attention. His tools have been sharpened the evening before. The blade moves smoothly. Thin curls of wood fall quietly onto the floor. The carpenter smiles with quiet satisfaction. A well-prepared tool makes steady work possible. Preparation itself is another form of repetition. The day's success often begins the night before. Outside, children chase each other for a few joyful moments before their own responsibilities begin. Their laughter rises gently through the morning air. It is not loud enough to disturb the peaceful rhythm of the village. Soon enough they slow down. One helps gather reeds. Another carries a water jar carefully with both hands. A girl follows her grandmother toward the baking oven. Even play gradually blends into learning. The children are not only growing taller. They are growing into the familiar patterns that surround them. Without realizing it, they are becoming the next generation of Egypt. The sun climbs a little higher. Warmth spreads once again across the valley. The cool hours begin their quiet farewell. Another ordinary day unfolds exactly as so many have before it. Not because life lacks imagination, but because repetition has become a trusted companion. It offers something precious in a world where floods may vary, illness may arrive without warning, and seasons cannot be controlled. Routine cannot remove uncertainty. It simply gives people a steady place to stand while uncertainty passes around them. And so, beneath the widening morning sky, beside the faithful river that has never forgotten its course, the people of Egypt continue their quiet work with calm hands and patient hearts, adding another ordinary day to the long, unbroken rhythm that has gently shaped their civilization for centuries already, and for many centuries still to come. Morning settles fully across the valley. The cool blue colors of dawn quietly fade into gentle shades of gold. The sunlight spreads over fields, along irrigation canals, across rows of mud brick homes, and over the broad surface of the Nile. The river catches the light as it always has, carrying bright reflections downstream without haste. Another day has begun. To the people of Egypt, this is not an announcement. It is simply a continuation. Yesterday has flowed naturally into today, just as today will slowly become tomorrow. No one expects life to begin again each morning. Life simply continues, one familiar step after another. In one corner of the village, a baker kneels beside a clay oven that has already begun to grow warm. The fire was started while the sky was still dark. Small pieces of dry wood crackle softly beneath the rounded oven. The baker reaches inside with practiced care, judging the heat without touching the stone itself. Years have taught these hands exactly what to feel. Too cool, and the bread will remain pale. Too hot, and the crust will darken too quickly. There are no written instructions beside the oven. There is only experience. Experience built from repetition. Thousands of mornings have quietly become one great teacher. Nearby, a young apprentice watches carefully. He says very little. Instead, his eyes follow every movement. How the dough is shaped. How the baker turns each loaf. How long each one remains inside the oven. These lessons are gentle. Nothing feels rushed. The apprentice knows he will not master this work today. No one expects him to. Skill grows like grain beside the Nile. Slowly. Patiently. One season at a time. Soon the smell of fresh bread begins drifting through the village. It mixes with the scent of warm earth, smoke, and river air. Many people pause for only a brief moment as they pass. Not because the smell is unusual. Quite the opposite. It is deeply familiar. Some scents become part of a person's understanding of home. Fresh bread is one of them. The same aroma welcomed parents, grandparents, and generations before them. It quietly reminds everyone that another ordinary day has begun well. At the edge of the fields, a farmer lifts a wooden hoe from where it rested overnight. He runs his hand along the smooth handle. The wood has become polished after years of use. Not polished by careful carving. Polished by countless hands. His father once held this same tool. Before him, another pair of hands may have carried it across these same fields. Objects in Egypt often outlive the people who use them. They quietly witness one generation giving way to the next. The farmer begins loosening the soil around young plants. The work is slow. Each movement asks for attention. If the hoe strikes too deeply, delicate roots may be harmed. If the soil remains too firm, water cannot travel as easily. He has performed this task so many times that his body seems to understand it without conscious thought. The mind grows quiet during familiar work. Thoughts drift gently like clouds across the sky. He notices a bird landing nearby. He watches small insects moving across the ground. He listens to distant voices carried by the morning breeze. The work continues without interruption. Repetition does not demand constant attention. Instead, it often creates space for quiet reflection. Farther along the canal, two brothers repair a narrow section of the bank where yesterday's water weakened the edge. They carry baskets filled with damp earth. One empties the basket. The other presses the soil firmly into place. Then they begin again. Neither speaks very much. They have worked together since childhood. Each already knows what the other will do next. Their movements fit together naturally. There is comfort in shared routine. Words become less necessary when people understand one another through years of working side by side. The canal itself is easy to overlook. Visitors might admire towering temples or shining statues. Few would stop to admire a narrow ditch carrying water through dark soil. Yet the canal quietly feeds the fields. Without it, grain would fail. Vegetables would struggle. Families would worry. Simple things often carry the greatest responsibility. The people who maintain these canals rarely receive praise. Still, every morning they return. Because they understand that life depends upon ordinary work done faithfully. As the sun rises higher, more boats appear upon the Nile. Some carry fishermen. Others transport grain, pottery, baskets, or bundles of papyrus reeds. The river serves every traveler without complaint. Its current moves steadily beneath each wooden hull. Boatmen guide their vessels with long poles or simple sails whenever the breeze allows. The journey is rarely hurried. Speed is less important than arriving safely. A merchant sits quietly near the front of one small boat. Beside him rest several clay jars filled with oil. Each jar has been wrapped carefully with woven fiber to protect it during travel. He occasionally checks the ropes securing the load. Not because he expects trouble. Simply because careful habits prevent many problems before they begin. This way of thinking appears everywhere in Egypt. A roof is repaired before it leaks. A rope is checked before it breaks. A basket is rewoven before it falls apart. The future is protected through small repeated acts. The merchant watches villages slowly pass along the riverbank. Each looks a little different. Some have more palm trees. Some have larger storage buildings. Others rest closer to the water. Yet each village shares familiar sights. Women carrying water jars. Children sweeping courtyards. Farmers bending over fields. Smoke rising gently from baking ovens. The same peaceful rhythm stretches along the Nile like a thread connecting countless communities. The kingdom feels large. Daily life feels wonderfully familiar. Back in the village, the potter's workshop grows warmer. Freshly shaped jars stand in neat rows waiting to dry. The potter carefully inspects each one. A slight crack appears near the rim of one vessel. He sighs softly. Not with frustration. Simply with acceptance. Clay sometimes behaves this way. He presses fresh clay into the weak place and smooths it carefully. Small mistakes deserve patient correction. Many things can still be made useful. Nearby, a child watches with wide eyes. The spinning wheel fascinates him. Round and round it turns. The clay rises beneath steady hands. The child smiles every time another jar takes shape. To him, the work still feels magical. To the potter, it feels familiar. Yet even after many years, there remains quiet satisfaction in seeing something useful emerge from ordinary earth. Across the lane, a woman sits beneath a shaded doorway weaving linen. Her fingers move with calm precision. Thread crosses thread. Again. And again. The growing fabric stretches slowly across the loom. No single movement changes very much. Yet after many hours, an entire length of cloth appears. The work teaches a gentle lesson. Great things often arrive almost unnoticed. One thread seems small. Thousands together become strong enough to clothe a family. Many parts of Egyptian life follow this same pattern. One stone. One loaf. One basket. One written record. One field carefully watered. None seem extraordinary alone. Together they build a civilization. The morning passes quietly. Children help gather vegetables from small garden plots near the houses. Green onions are pulled gently from the earth. Beans are placed carefully into woven baskets. A little girl proudly carries herbs almost as tall as she is. Her grandmother thanks her warmly. The child smiles with quiet pride. Helping is not treated as a burden. It is simply part of belonging. Everyone contributes according to strength. As children grow older, their responsibilities slowly grow with them. There is no sudden moment when childhood ends. Instead, learning unfolds through countless ordinary days. An elderly grandfather sits nearby repairing a fishing net. His fingers move more slowly than they once did. His eyesight is not as sharp. Still, his hands remember the knots. He ties each one carefully. The younger fisherman could complete the work more quickly. Yet no one rushes him. His experience carries value beyond speed. The children sometimes sit beside him, watching the pattern of the net emerge. Without realizing it, they begin memorizing the movements. Knowledge often travels quietly from old hands to young ones. No formal lesson is needed. Only time. Only patience. Only repetition. The sun continues climbing. The coolness of early morning gradually disappears. Shadows shorten. The stone walls begin storing heat once again. Workers pause briefly to drink water gathered before sunrise. Clay jars remain cool inside shaded rooms. The water tastes fresh after hours beneath the growing sun. A farmer wipes dust from his forehead. He looks across the fields toward the river. The Nile glitters in the distance. It has already carried boats, watered crops, reflected the morning sky, and welcomed countless people to its banks before the day is even half complete. Tomorrow it will do these things again. Next season it will continue. Next generation as well. Its constancy offers quiet reassurance. Many parts of life remain uncertain. The river reminds people that not everything changes at once. A scribe walks slowly along a shaded path carrying fresh sheets of papyrus beneath one arm. He nods politely to people passing in the opposite direction. Some are farmers. Some are craftsmen. Some are servants carrying baskets toward larger households. Each person's work looks different. Yet every role depends upon the others. The scribe records grain because someone has grown it. The builder shapes stone because someone has cut it. The baker prepares bread because someone has ground the flour. The fisherman fills his basket because someone has woven his net. No task stands entirely alone. Repetition quietly binds them together. The village itself is like a woven cloth. Each thread supports another. By midday, the sunlight has become bright and steady. The warm desert wind begins to move gently through the narrow streets, lifting fine dust into the air before letting it settle once more upon familiar roads. The day continues just as countless days have before it, carried forward not by moments of great excitement, but by calm hands, steady hearts, and ordinary people who find quiet purpose in doing today's work as carefully as yesterday's, trusting that tomorrow, when the first light touches the Nile again, the peaceful rhythm of Egypt will begin once more. By the time the sun reaches the middle of the sky, the valley is wrapped in warmth. The light falls almost straight down now, leaving only short patches of shade beside walls, beneath date palms, and under the roofs that stretch a little beyond the sides of mud brick homes. The bright morning has quietly become the stillness of midday. The pace of life changes. Not because the work is finished. Simply because the heat asks everyone to move with greater care. The people of Egypt understand the sun well. It is both friend and challenge. It ripens grain. It dries bricks. It warms the cool mornings. Yet it also drains strength from tired muscles. For this reason, experience teaches another kind of repetition. There is a proper time for every task. Heavy lifting belongs to the cooler hours whenever possible. Walking long distances is easier before the heat settles across the land. Repairing tools may wait until the afternoon when the hottest part of the day invites slower work beneath shade. This rhythm is followed so often that few people stop to think about it. Their bodies already know. In one field, a group of workers gathers beneath a broad sycamore tree. The shade is not large, but it is enough. They sit upon woven mats spread across the cool ground. Someone opens a basket of fresh bread baked before sunrise. Another unwraps onions tied together with strips of linen. A clay jar of water is passed from one pair of hands to another. No one rushes the meal. There is little conversation at first. The quiet itself feels welcome. The only sounds are gentle ones. A breeze moving through leaves. A bird calling from somewhere near the river. The soft tear of bread being shared between friends. One worker closes his eyes for a brief moment. Not to sleep. Simply to enjoy the coolness of the shade after many hours beneath the sun. His shoulders relax. His breathing slows. Soon enough, work will begin again. For now, rest is part of the day's labor. The Egyptians understand something that years beside the Nile have quietly taught them. A person who never rests cannot continue working for long. Rest is not separate from labor. It belongs to it. Nearby, a young builder drinks slowly from a small cup. An older craftsman notices that he reaches for more water too quickly. With a gentle smile, the older man shakes his head. He lifts his own cup and drinks slowly, setting an example rather than giving a lecture. The younger builder nods. He understands. The afternoon is still ahead. Strength must last until evening. Many lessons in Egypt are taught this way. Patiently. Silently. One careful example following another. Words are useful. Habits are remembered longer. Across the village, the narrow streets grow quieter. Many workshops pause for a short while. The potter leaves his wheel standing still. The carpenter places his tools neatly upon the bench. The weaver stretches tired fingers before covering the loom with cloth to keep dust away. Nothing is left carelessly. Everything is prepared for returning later. Preparation is another quiet companion of repetition. The same careful ending makes tomorrow's beginning easier. Inside a cool storage room, grain fills large clay jars lined carefully against thick walls. The room smells faintly of dry wheat and earth. Light enters only through a small opening high above. The air remains pleasantly cool compared with the bright courtyard outside. A storekeeper walks slowly between the jars. He places one hand against each lid, making certain it rests properly. He looks for signs that insects have found their way inside. He checks for cracks that might allow precious grain to spill. These inspections happen often. Most days, nothing has changed. Still, he checks. Because careful attention today prevents greater trouble later. The grain resting quietly in these jars represents many months of work. Fields were prepared. Seeds were planted. Canals carried water. Weeds were removed. Harvests were gathered beneath warm skies. Bundles were carried. Grain was separated. Then stored. Every loaf of bread begins here. The jars stand silently. Yet they hold the patient effort of an entire community. Farther away, near the riverbank, fishermen repair their boats. One man kneels beside the wooden hull of a narrow vessel. His fingers spread warm resin into a small crack. The opening is tiny. The boat still floats well enough. but waiting would only make the repair more difficult later. So he fixes it now. The work is slow. He smooths the resin with the edge of a flat tool. Then he waits quietly while the sun helps it harden. He does not feel impatient. The river has taught him that good work cannot always be hurried. As he waits, he watches the water. Several white birds stand in the shallows. A family washes clothing farther downstream. A child laughs after splashing cool water onto his older brother's feet. The laughter rises gently before fading once more into peaceful quiet. The fisherman smiles. Simple moments often become the most treasured memories. Not because they are rare. Because they happen often enough to become part of life itself. A little farther inland, a woman sits inside her home with a basket of flax fibers. Patiently, she twists the fibers together into strong thread. Her fingers move almost without thought. Twist. Pull. Smooth. Twist again. Hour after hour, the thread grows longer. It will one day become linen. The linen may become clothing. Or a sail. Or wrapping for precious belongings. Everything begins as something small. She remembers learning this skill beside her own mother. At first, the fibers slipped through clumsy fingers. The thread broke often. She grew frustrated. Her mother never became impatient. She simply smiled and began again. The lesson was never about making perfect thread. It was about returning to the task. Again. And again. Until the hands learned for themselves. Now, years later, she teaches the same movements to her own daughter. Nothing has changed very much. The words are almost the same. The demonstrations are nearly identical. Generation after generation, quiet knowledge passes from one pair of hands to another. There is comfort in this continuity. As the afternoon slowly unfolds, a scribe sits beneath the shade of a column outside an administrative building. The thick stone keeps the area pleasantly cool. A roll of papyrus rests across his lap. He dips his brush into black ink. Each symbol is placed carefully. He does not hurry his writing. Mistakes require scraping away ink or beginning again. Patience is easier. His records describe ordinary things. Deliveries of grain. Numbers of laborers. Measurements of harvested fields. Repairs completed along irrigation canals. To someone from another age, these pages might seem dull. Yet they quietly reveal the true heartbeat of Egypt. Not festivals. Not ceremonies. Not royal celebrations. Instead, they tell the story of ordinary work repeated faithfully every season. The scribe pauses. He lifts his eyes toward the river. A gentle breeze carries the scent of water into the shaded courtyard. For a few moments he simply watches a line of ducks crossing the surface. Then he lowers his brush and continues writing. There is no need to rush. The day is long. Across the valley, heat shimmers above the fields. From a distance, the air itself seems to move like quiet water. Workers continue at a slower pace now. A farmer carefully adjusts the flow through a small irrigation gate. Only a little more water is needed. Too much would wash away precious soil. Too little would leave thirsty roots beneath the surface. He waits patiently, watching the current. Experience has taught him not to leave too soon. Small changes often require time before they reveal themselves. The canal answers slowly. The water settles. Satisfied, he closes the gate and continues to the next field. These small adjustments happen every day. Almost no one speaks about them. Yet together they help feed villages stretching for many miles along the Nile. The afternoon begins its gentle journey toward evening. The sunlight softens almost too slowly to notice. Longer shadows quietly return. The hottest hours loosen their grip. People breathe a little more easily. The promise of evening approaches without hurry. Children who have spent part of the day helping their families begin gathering near open spaces between the houses. Some play with smooth stones. Others draw simple patterns in the dust using small sticks. Their games are quiet. Every so often an older child pauses to help a younger one. Even in play, they imitate the cooperation they see each day among the adults. Nearby, an old dog sleeps beneath the shade of a cart. Goats nibble patiently at scattered plants near the edge of the village. Donkeys flick their tails lazily against persistent flies. The entire village seems to breathe together. No movement feels wasted. No sound feels out of place. The ordinary world of Egypt continues exactly as it has through countless seasons, held together not by hurried ambition, but by familiar routines, steady hands, and the peaceful understanding that every loaf of bread, every repaired canal, every woven thread, every careful record, and every quiet act of kindness becomes another small stone in the strong and lasting foundation of a civilization built, day after day, upon repetition. The afternoon slowly leans toward evening. The bright light that covered the valley only a short while ago begins to soften, almost too gently to notice at first. The edges of the shadows lose their sharpness. The warm air still rests over the fields, but the breeze coming from the Nile carries the first quiet promise that the hottest hours are passing. Across the farmland, workers continue at their familiar pace. No one watches the sun every moment. There is no need. After many years beside the river, people learn to feel the passing of the day. The light changes. The birds change their songs. The wind becomes softer. The smell of the earth changes as the heat slowly leaves it. These small signs are enough. A farmer straightens his back for a moment. He places both hands upon his hips and looks across the rows of growing grain. Nothing remarkable has happened today. The field simply looks a little healthier than it did this morning. A few weeds have disappeared. The soil around the young plants has been loosened. The irrigation channels have carried water exactly where it was needed. These are small victories. No one gathers to celebrate them. Yet tomorrow's harvest quietly depends upon today's ordinary work. He bends once more. His hands disappear among the green stalks. The rhythm begins again. Reach. Pull. Brush away loose earth. Move one step forward. Repeat. The movements are so familiar that they become almost like breathing. Many years from now, he may forget what happened on this particular afternoon. He will not remember every cloud that crossed the sky. He will not remember every bird that flew overhead. But his hands will remember these motions. His muscles will carry them long after the details of the day have faded. Nearby, a narrow canal reflects the pale blue of the afternoon sky. The water moves quietly between banks strengthened by generations of careful labor. Tiny insects skim across its surface. A dragonfly hovers above the reeds before settling for a brief moment on a bending stem. The canal is never completely still. Neither is it hurried. Its steady movement mirrors the life surrounding it. Water does not rush because it understands that every field will be reached in time. A young boy kneels beside the canal with a small clay cup. He carefully fills it with water before carrying it toward his grandfather, who is resting beneath a palm tree. The cup is almost too full. The boy walks slowly. His eyes remain fixed upon the water. Only a few drops spill onto the dusty ground. When he reaches his grandfather, the older man smiles warmly. He accepts the cup with both hands. There are no grand words. Only quiet gratitude. The boy sits beside him. For several minutes they simply watch the fields together. Sometimes companionship asks for conversation. Sometimes it asks only for shared silence. The old man has learned this over many decades. He no longer feels uncomfortable when nothing is said. The breeze, the birds, and the distant sounds of work become enough. After a while, he begins speaking softly. Not to tell exciting stories. Instead, he remembers small things. He tells the boy how the tallest palm tree near the river was once no taller than a walking stick. He remembers helping plant it with his own father. He remembers carrying water in little jars while his father pressed fresh earth around the roots. At that time, it seemed impossible that the tree would ever grow so high. Yet every season it became a little taller. Not all at once. Only a little. The old man smiles as he looks toward the tree. Life often grows this way. Quietly. Patiently. Almost unnoticed. The boy listens carefully. He looks at the great palm with new eyes. It is easy to admire something large. It is harder to imagine how many ordinary days created it. In another part of the village, a woman opens a clay storage jar. Inside rests grain gathered many months earlier. She runs her hand gently through it. The kernels are dry. Clean. Safe. She nods with quiet satisfaction. Good storage is as important as good harvest. Grain that is carelessly kept may feed insects instead of families. So she checks each jar often. The lids fit tightly. The baskets nearby remain dry. The storage room stays cool beneath its thick walls. Every inspection seems almost identical to the last. Still, every inspection matters. Nothing useful remains useful without care. Outside the house, two girls gather small bundles of dried reeds. Tomorrow they will help repair woven sleeping mats. The older girl already knows how to weave the fibers together. The younger one is still learning. She watches closely. Her first attempts are uneven. Some reeds slip loose. Others bend in the wrong direction. She frowns for a moment. Her sister quietly removes the loose reeds and begins again. She does not laugh. She does not hurry. She simply repeats the movement more slowly. The younger girl copies her once more. This time the weave holds together. A small smile appears. One successful row becomes another. Then another. Before long, the pattern begins to grow. Learning often feels this way. Not one great discovery. Many tiny improvements. Each built upon yesterday's effort. Farther along the dusty road, merchants return from nearby villages. Their donkeys walk at an easy pace. The baskets hanging from either side are lighter now. Some goods have been traded for grain. Others for cloth. Others for fresh vegetables or oil. The merchants have traveled these roads many times. They know where the shade appears during afternoon journeys. They know where wells offer cool water. They know which villages greet travelers with warm hospitality. The road itself has become an old friend. Its curves feel familiar beneath their feet. The dust rising behind the animals glows softly in the lowering sunlight. One merchant hums a quiet tune. It has no audience. He sings because the rhythm of walking seems to invite music. The tune is simple. Perhaps his father sang it. Perhaps his grandfather did as well. Many songs survive because they fit naturally beside repeated work. The melody matches steady footsteps. It asks for no hurry. Only patience. Along the Nile, fishermen prepare for the evening hours. Some fish become easier to catch as the light begins to fade. Nets are unfolded carefully. Each knot receives a quick glance. Years of experience have taught every fisherman that one broken section may allow an entire catch to escape. So they inspect each net before leaving shore. Again. And again. Some habits are never abandoned because they continue proving their worth. One older fisherman notices a tiny tear near the edge of his net. Without hesitation, he sits upon the riverbank. His hands move calmly. Thread passes through fiber. The knot tightens. The tear disappears. The repair takes only a few minutes. Those few minutes may save many hours later. Nearby, reeds sway gently as the afternoon breeze grows cooler. Small birds dart among them before disappearing into hidden nests. The river reflects long bands of golden light. Everything seems softer now. Even voices become quieter. The day's hardest work is slowly giving way to evening's gentler rhythm. Back in the village, smoke begins rising from clay ovens once again. Fresh dough waits upon wooden boards. Children carry little bundles of firewood gathered during the day. An elderly woman kneels beside the oven. She smiles as she feels the warmth reaching her face. The movements are deeply familiar. She has baked bread through many seasons. She remembers doing this as a young bride. She remembers doing it while carrying her first child. She remembers teaching her daughters. Now her granddaughters watch nearby. The work continues. The hands change. The rhythm remains. One loaf after another disappears into the warm oven. Soon the comforting smell of baking bread spreads through the narrow streets. Neighbors recognize it instantly. No one needs to ask what is being prepared. The scent itself feels like an evening greeting. As shadows grow longer, builders begin returning from their work. Their linen clothing carries fine dust from stone and sand. Their shoulders are tired. Their hands are rough. Yet their faces are calm. Today's labor is complete. Tomorrow will bring another portion of the same work. There is no disappointment in this. Only acceptance. Large buildings are not raised in a single season. Great walls are not finished in 1 year. Stone teaches patience. Each block rests upon another. Each day rests upon the one before it. Civilizations grow in much the same way. One ordinary morning. One ordinary afternoon. One ordinary evening. Repeated so many times that they become centuries. A young builder pauses before entering his home. He removes his sandals. Fine dust falls gently onto the ground. He brushes the leather straps clean with his hand before placing them neatly beside the doorway. It is a small habit. It takes only a moment. Yet tomorrow morning his sandals will be ready. The leather will last a little longer. The stitching will remain stronger. Care given today quietly serves tomorrow. Throughout Egypt, thousands of similar acts unfold at almost the same hour. Someone sharpens a blade before storing it. Someone folds linen carefully. Someone fills water jars for the coming dawn. Someone sweeps a courtyard. Someone gathers dry reeds before the evening dew settles upon them. Each task is simple. Together they create order. As the western sky slowly turns shades of amber and soft rose, the valley begins another peaceful transition from labor toward rest. The Nile continues flowing with its timeless patience, carrying the reflections of the fading sunlight downstream, just as it carried yesterday's light, and the light of countless evenings before, quietly reminding every farmer, builder, scribe, fisherman, merchant, and child that the greatest strength of Egypt has never rested in moments of sudden greatness, but in the calm and faithful repetition of ordinary days, lived with steady hands beneath the endless sky. The sun lowers slowly toward the western horizon. Its bright light softens into warm shades of amber, honey, and pale gold. Across the valley, long shadows stretch over the fields, gently connecting rows of grain, winding canals, and quiet footpaths that have carried generations of sandals. The day does not end suddenly. It loosens its grip little by little. The air, which only a short while ago felt heavy with heat, begins to breathe again. A cooler breeze rises from the Nile, carrying with it the gentle scent of fresh water, damp reeds, and fertile earth. The wind slips quietly through the leaves of date palms, making them whisper to one another. Many people pause for just a moment. Not because their work is finished. Simply because the evening has a way of inviting slower movements. A farmer places his hoe across one shoulder. He looks over the field one last time before beginning the walk home. The rows are neat. The irrigation channels are flowing well. Nothing more needs to be done until tomorrow. He feels no need to hurry. The path home has become one of the most familiar journeys of his life. He has walked it after thousands of sunsets. As a child, he walked beside his father. As a young man, beside friends who laughed more easily after the day's work was complete. Now, many years later, he walks with slower steps. His hair has begun to show a little gray. The path has not changed very much. Neither have the hills in the distance. The river still reflects the evening light in the same quiet way. Sometimes he wonders how many footsteps this road has carried. Not only his own, but those of countless people who came before him. Children carrying baskets. Women bringing water from the Nile. Builders returning from distant work sites. Merchants leading patient donkeys. Scribes walking thoughtfully with rolled papyrus beneath one arm. Each pair of sandals leaves only temporary marks in the dust. The wind eventually smooths them away. Yet the road remembers through its shape. Its gentle curves were formed by generations moving together. Farther along the riverbank, fishermen prepare to cast their nets one final time before darkness settles across the valley. One older fisherman kneels quietly beside his boat. He places both hands upon the smooth wooden edge. The wood feels warm from the afternoon sun. He notices a tiny place where the surface has begun to wear smooth beneath years of use. His father once rested his hands there. Before him, perhaps his grandfather did as well. The boat has been repaired many times. New boards have replaced old ones. Fresh rope has taken the place of worn cord. Yet something of the past remains inside it. Objects cared for over many years seem to gather memories without speaking. The fisherman gently pushes away from shore. The boat glides silently into the calm water. There is almost no sound except the quiet splash of the oar. The river welcomes him once again. It asks nothing. It simply continues carrying boats as it always has. Nearby, a flock of white birds rises suddenly from the reeds. For a few moments they circle together above the water before settling farther downstream. The fisherman watches them with quiet interest. Birds often reveal where fish may be gathering. Nature speaks softly. Those who live close to it learn to listen. Listening itself becomes another repeated habit. One does not hear every lesson the first time. Only after many seasons do patterns begin to appear. Along the village paths, children help carry the last baskets home. Some baskets hold onions. Others contain beans, herbs, or bundles of flax. One little girl struggles with a basket that is slightly too large for her. Her older brother notices. Without saying anything, he reaches for one side. Together they carry it the rest of the way. The basket feels lighter. Not because it weighs less. Because the work is shared. Their mother smiles as she watches from the doorway. These small acts of kindness happen so often that few people think of them as special. Yet they quietly shape the character of the village. Helping becomes another daily rhythm. One generation learns it by watching the one before. Inside a nearby courtyard, a potter carefully examines the jars made earlier in the day. The clay has begun to dry. He taps each vessel lightly with his fingertips. The sound tells him more than his eyes alone. A clear tone means the walls are drying evenly. A dull sound suggests moisture remains inside. Years of careful listening have taught him these differences. He trusts his ears as much as his hands. A young apprentice stands nearby. He tries tapping another jar. To him, every sound seems almost the same. The potter smiles gently. He remembers feeling exactly the same many years ago. There are some lessons that cannot be hurried. The ear learns slowly. Just as the hands do. The apprentice nods. Tomorrow he will listen again. The next day as well. One afternoon, perhaps many years from now, he will suddenly notice the difference without even realizing when he learned it. This is how quiet knowledge grows. Not through one perfect lesson, but through countless ordinary afternoons. As evening deepens, smoke rises from many ovens throughout the village. Thin gray lines drift upward into the calm sky before disappearing into the warm light above. The smell of baking bread returns once more. It mingles with roasted onions, herbs, lentils, and fish fresh from the Nile. These familiar scents spread slowly between the houses. No one needs to announce that the evening meal is nearly ready. The air itself carries the message. Families begin gathering. One by one, workers return home. A stone mason washes dust from his hands using water poured carefully from a clay jar. The water feels wonderfully cool. Fine grains of limestone swirl away before disappearing into the earth. He studies his hands for a moment. The skin has grown thick over many years. Tiny white lines of old scars cross his fingers. Each mark tells the story of ordinary work. None came from battle. None from great adventure. They came from lifting stone, holding rope, using chisels, sharpening tools, repairing sledges. Thousands of small tasks have slowly written their history upon his hands. Inside the house, his youngest son reaches for one of those rough hands. The child places his tiny fingers against his father's broad palm. The difference makes him smile. One hand is smooth. The other strong and worn. Someday, if life is kind, the child's hands may slowly change in much the same way. Not all at once. Little by little. One season after another. An elderly grandmother sits nearby weaving a small basket from fresh reeds gathered earlier in the week. Her fingers move more slowly now. She no longer finishes as quickly as she once did. Yet every strand is placed with care. She has learned that speed matters less than steadiness. The basket grows one careful row at a time. A granddaughter sits beside her, copying each movement. Sometimes the reeds slip loose. Sometimes they bend the wrong way. The older woman quietly adjusts them. She never scolds. She simply repeats the demonstration. Again. And again. Patient teaching follows the same rhythm as every other part of Egyptian life. No one expects mastery in a single day. Evening settles more deeply across the valley. The sunlight touches the tops of the western cliffs before slowly disappearing. For a few quiet moments, the sky glows with soft colors. Amber, rose, lavender. Then those colors gently fade into deeper blue. The first evening star appears above the eastern horizon. Many people notice it without speaking. It has greeted them countless times before. Nearby, the sound of a reed flute drifts softly through the village. Someone plays a slow, familiar melody while sitting outside a modest home. The tune is gentle. There is no audience gathered to listen. The music belongs naturally to the evening, just as birdsong belongs to the morning. The melody rises and falls with the breeze. Children grow quieter as they listen. Adults continue their small evening tasks. No one feels the need to interrupt. The flute simply becomes another peaceful thread woven into the life of the village. As darkness gradually spreads across the land, the day's labor slips gently into memory. Tomorrow will ask for much the same work. The canals will need watching. The grain will need grinding. The bread will need baking. The boats will return to the Nile. The scribes will unroll fresh papyrus. The builders will lift stone once more. And no one will think these repetitions are ordinary in a disappointing way. Instead, they will understand them as something steady and dependable. Each repeated task is like another heartbeat. One heartbeat seems small. Millions together sustain a lifetime. In the same quiet way, millions of ordinary days, lived by farmers, potters, weavers, fishermen, bakers, merchants, servants, children, and elders, slowly built the enduring strength of Egyptian civilization, never through haste, never through noise, but through the peaceful rhythm of familiar hands returning each day to work they knew by heart, while the faithful Nile flowed beside them beneath the calm and unchanging stars. Night settles over the Nile once again. The last glow of sunset fades gently beyond the western desert, leaving behind a sky that slowly fills with quiet stars. The warmth stored inside the stone and mud brick walls begins to drift back into the cool evening air. Across the valley, the sounds of work disappear one by one until only the peaceful voice of the river remains. The Nile never seems lonely at night. Its surface reflects the moon in long ribbons of silver. Gentle ripples stretch toward the banks where reeds sway softly in the breeze. A frog calls from the shallow water. Another answers farther away. The sounds are never loud. They simply remind the sleeping villages that life continues even after darkness arrives. Inside one small home, the evening meal has ended. The clay bowls have been washed carefully. Only a little water was needed. Water is never wasted. The bowls are turned upside down upon a smooth shelf where they will dry before morning. A woven cloth is placed over the basket holding tomorrow's bread. The grinding stone rests silently in its corner. Everything waits patiently for another dawn. The family gathers for a few quiet moments before sleep. No one feels the need to hurry toward bed. The day's work has already been completed. There is peace in knowing that nothing more is expected tonight. The father sits near the doorway. The cooler night air reaches him there. He stretches his tired legs and gently rubs one knee. Years of walking behind plows, carrying grain, and repairing canal banks have left their gentle marks upon his body. The ache is familiar. He does not resent it. It simply reminds him of the many seasons that have passed. His oldest daughter quietly brushes loose dust from a pair of sandals. She runs a cloth over the leather straps. Tiny grains of sand fall onto the floor. The sandals will be ready for morning. It is a small task. It takes only a few moments. Yet these few moments will make tomorrow just a little easier. Many peaceful lives are built from such quiet preparations. Across the village, another family rolls up sleeping mats that had been resting outside in the evening breeze. The woven reeds still carry the warmth of the day. Soon they will cool beneath the night air inside the house. Children help carry them indoors. Even the smallest child insists on lifting one corner. The mat is hardly heavy. Still, everyone smiles when he proudly carries his little part. Helping begins long before strength is fully grown. An elderly grandfather watches from his seat beneath the stars. His eyesight has grown softer over the years. Faraway objects are not as clear as they once were. But he still recognizes every familiar shape around him. The outline of the nearest palm tree. The roof of the neighbor's home. The curve of the river beyond the reeds. He has looked upon these same sights through thousands of evenings. Their familiarity is comforting. There are places in the world that constantly ask people to learn new paths. Egypt asks something different. It invites people to know one place deeply. The old man remembers being a boy. He remembers standing beside this very river while his father taught him how to judge the level of the water. At first, the river looked the same every day. Then, slowly, he learned to notice small differences. A little higher. A little lower. A slightly stronger current. A change in the color of the water after distant rains far to the south. The river rewarded patience. It revealed its secrets only to those who returned again and again. Many parts of life behave this way. A potter learns clay. A weaver learns thread. A farmer learns soil. A fisherman learns currents. None of these lessons arrive quickly. They unfold slowly across years of repeated attention. Far beyond the village, the desert rests beneath the moon. Its broad open spaces appear almost endless. The sand glows softly beneath silver light. Ancient rocks cast long shadows that seem frozen in place. Very little moves there tonight. The stillness of the desert makes the valley feel even more alive. Here beside the Nile there is water. Fields. Trees. Homes. Voices. Laughter. Bread baking each morning. Children growing taller each season. The contrast is gentle but constant. The people understand how fortunate they are to live where the river returns every year. The flood itself has become part of their understanding of time. Children remember how high the water reached when they were very small. Adults compare one season with another. Older people quietly recall floods from many decades before. Each year writes another memory upon the banks. No flood is exactly the same. Yet every flood belongs to the same great rhythm. That rhythm reaches into every part of Egyptian life. The calendar follows it. The fields depend upon it. The storage jars reflect it. Even festivals arrive according to its patient cycle. Repetition is not only found in daily work. It is woven into the turning of the entire year. Inside a nearby workshop, a carpenter sits alone for a little while longer. The others have already gone home. He wishes to finish smoothing the edge of a wooden stool before the light disappears completely. His hand guides a simple scraping tool across the surface. Thin curls of wood fall quietly onto the floor. The scent of fresh timber fills the room. He pauses often, running his fingers across the wood. He does not rely only upon his eyes. His fingertips tell him where the surface remains rough. Again he scrapes. Again he feels. Little by little the wood becomes smooth. No single stroke creates the finished piece. Only many careful strokes together. He smiles with quiet satisfaction. Tomorrow he will continue another project. Perhaps a storage chest. Perhaps a door. Perhaps a simple handle for a farming tool. Every useful object begins with patient hands. Outside, the stars grow brighter. The moon climbs higher. A cool breeze moves through the palm leaves, making them rustle softly above the sleeping homes. The village settles into deeper silence. Only an occasional voice drifts through the darkness before fading once more. In one house, a young mother hums a gentle melody while rocking her baby. The child has almost fallen asleep. The tune is old. She learned it from her own mother. Perhaps her mother learned it from hers. No one remembers who first sang it. That hardly matters. It has become part of family life, passed quietly from one generation to another without ever needing to be written down. The melody carries no grand story. It simply offers comfort. Like the river. Like the evening breeze. Like warm bread shared after a long day. Some traditions survive because they are useful. Others survive because they make the heart feel peaceful. Nearby, a scribe carefully places several finished rolls of papyrus into a wooden chest. He ties each one with woven cord. Tomorrow he will begin fresh records. Today's work is complete. The records may seem ordinary. Lists of grain. Deliveries of stone. Numbers of workers. Measurements of fields. Yet these pages quietly preserve the rhythm of an entire civilization. They tell the story of people who understood that greatness is often built from careful organization repeated every day. The scribe closes the chest. He blows out the lamp. Darkness gently fills the room. He steps outside for a moment before sleeping. The stars stretch from one horizon to the other. He recognizes many of them. Not because he studies the heavens as an astronomer. Simply because he has ended so many evenings beneath this same sky. The heavens themselves seem faithful. Night follows day. Morning follows night. The seasons return. The river rises. The crops grow. Children become adults. Adults become elders. Life continues. Slowly. Steadily. Patiently. A gentle wind crosses the fields, brushing the tops of the grain until they move together like quiet waves upon the sea. The sound is almost like whispering. If someone listened carefully, it might seem as though the land itself were breathing. Perhaps in a way it is. The valley breathes with its people. Morning fills it with footsteps. Afternoon with steady labor. Evening with cooking fires. Night with peaceful rest. Then dawn begins the gentle rhythm once more. Nothing feels hurried. Nothing asks for sudden change. Instead, each ordinary day joins the thousands that came before it, forming an unbroken chain of familiar mornings and quiet evenings, where every loaf of bread, every repaired sandal, every woven basket, every carefully sharpened tool, every child learning from patient hands, and every silent glance across the faithful Nile adds another small, lasting thread to the great tapestry of Egyptian civilization, woven not through extraordinary moments alone, but through the calm repetition of everyday life beneath the endless desert sky. The quiet hours before dawn return once more. The stars still fill the wide Egyptian sky, though their brightness has begun to soften ever so slightly. The moon hangs low above the western desert, preparing to slip beyond the distant hills. A gentle mist rises from the cool waters of the Nile, drifting slowly across the reeds before disappearing into the calm morning air. The valley waits. Nothing feels empty. Nothing feels hurried. It is simply the peaceful pause that comes before another familiar day begins. The river continues its slow journey. It has traveled through the darkness without rest. Long before the first family opens a wooden door, before the first lamp is lit, before the first grinding stone begins its quiet song, the Nile is already awake. Its steady current asks for no applause. It simply continues. Perhaps that is one of the river's oldest lessons. The most dependable things in life rarely announce themselves. They simply remain faithful. A heron stands perfectly still near the riverbank. Its reflection rests beside it upon the smooth water. For several long moments, neither seems to move. Then, almost too gently to notice, the bird takes one careful step. Tiny circles spread across the surface. The reflection breaks apart before quietly becoming whole again. The river accepts every movement without complaint. Nearby, papyrus reeds sway softly. They have watched countless mornings arrive. Season after season, they bend with the wind rather than resist it. Their quiet strength comes from flexibility. Many people beside the Nile live much the same way. They do not fight the rhythm of the seasons. Instead, they move with them. Inside the village, the first sound of waking comes from a simple courtyard. A wooden door opens with a soft creak. A woman steps outside carrying an empty clay jar. The air feels wonderfully cool against her face. She pauses for a moment before beginning the familiar walk toward the river. She has made this journey almost every morning for many years. She no longer counts the steps. Her feet know the path. The narrow lane curves gently between neighboring homes. Mud brick walls still hold a little of yesterday's warmth. Above them, the sky slowly changes from deep blue to pale gray. The stars begin disappearing one by one. No single star seems to vanish. Instead, daylight quietly welcomes them into invisibility. Along the same path, another neighbor appears carrying two smaller jars balanced upon a wooden yoke across his shoulders. They greet each other with warm smiles. Their words are few. There is comfort in familiar company. Not every friendship depends upon long conversations. Sometimes simply walking together through the cool morning is enough. Their sandals press softly into the dust. Fresh footprints appear beside yesterday's fading marks. Soon new footsteps will cover these as well. The road never remains empty for long. At the riverbank, the water reflects the first pale light of dawn. The surface is almost perfectly smooth. The woman kneels carefully. She lowers her jar beneath the surface. Cool water fills it with a gentle sound. She lifts it slowly, allowing the extra drops to fall back into the Nile. Nothing is wasted. Every movement has become careful through years of repetition. Nearby, another family fills larger jars for the day's baking and cooking. Children stand patiently beside their parents. Some carry little cups. Others help steady heavy jars while they are lifted. Even the youngest understand that water deserves respect. It is gathered every day. Yet no one treats it carelessly. Across the river, mist curls gently above the fields. The first rays of sunlight begin touching the highest branches of the palm trees. Birds awaken one after another. Some glide low above the water. Others disappear into the growing light with quiet confidence. The valley slowly finds its voice again. A donkey shakes its head near a small stable. Goats stir beside a stone wall. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster calls. Its voice travels easily through the cool air. The village answers. Not with noise. With movement. One household lights an oil lamp. Another opens its courtyard gate. A third begins preparing grain. Morning arrives through many small actions rather than one great moment. Inside a modest home, an elderly woman sits beside a grinding stone. She places grain into the upper stone with practiced hands. For a brief moment she rests both palms upon the smooth surface. The stone feels cool from the night. Soon it will grow warm beneath steady work. She begins turning it slowly. The familiar sound returns. Stone against grain. Round and round. Again. 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 The rhythm fills the room with quiet certainty. She has listened to this sound for most of her life. As a little girl, she woke to it. As a young wife, she created it. Now, as an elder, she still welcomes the same peaceful music each dawn. Some sounds become woven into the heart. The grinding stone is one of them. A granddaughter sits nearby watching carefully. She is old enough to help now. The elderly woman smiles and slides a little closer, making room beside the stone. The child places both hands where she is shown. At first the movement feels awkward. The stone is heavier than she expected. It turns unevenly. The older woman places her own hands gently over the child's. Together they guide the slow circle. The movement becomes smoother. Not perfect. Simply steadier. The child laughs quietly. The grandmother laughs too. No lesson is announced. No speech is given. The work itself teaches. Outside, the smell of fresh flour soon mixes with the scent of wood smoke. Another oven has been lit. Then another. Soon the whole village begins filling with the comforting aroma of bread. The smell drifts through narrow streets before reaching the open fields beyond. Farmers passing on their way to work notice it with quiet satisfaction. Morning feels complete once the bread begins baking. Near the edge of the village, a shepherd opens a small enclosure. A flock of sheep steps out into the cool air. They move slowly at first. Still sleepy. The shepherd walks ahead carrying a simple wooden staff. He never needs to force them. The animals already know the path toward fresh grazing. They have followed it through many seasons. The shepherd smiles to himself. Even the sheep understand routine. The familiar trail feels safe. He watches them spread across a grassy patch near the river. They lower their heads and begin eating quietly. The shepherd settles onto a flat stone nearby. He has learned that careful watching often requires patient stillness. There is no need to pace back and forth. The flock remains calm when he remains calm. Across the fields, builders begin gathering once more. Some arrive carrying ropes coiled neatly over one shoulder. Others bring copper chisels wrapped carefully inside linen cloth. One man carries a wooden mallet polished smooth from many years of use. Each tool has been cleaned the evening before. Each is ready for another day's labor. Preparation makes beginnings peaceful. No one searches for missing equipment. No one argues over forgotten supplies. Careful habits quietly remove unnecessary worry. The builders exchange friendly greetings before setting to work. An older foreman studies the stone already shaped yesterday. He runs his hand along its surface. It is ready to be moved. Not today. Perhaps tomorrow. There is no disappointment. Stone asks for patience. The foreman has spent his entire life learning not to rush it. He understands that one carefully shaped block is worth far more than several poorly finished ones. The younger workers notice his calm manner. Without realizing it, they begin copying it. Patience is contagious when it is lived every day. Farther along the Nile, fishermen untie their boats. The ropes slide quietly through weathered hands. Wood creaks softly. The current welcomes each boat with gentle movement. The fishermen push away from shore. Their reflections drift beside them upon the calm water. They know where they are going long before the boats begin moving. The river has become a map carried inside memory. Each bend, Each cluster of reeds, each shallow bank, each deeper channel, all are remembered through years of quiet attention. Morning continues unfolding with the same gentle certainty that has guided Egypt for countless generations. No trumpet announces the beginning of the day. No great voice commands the people to rise. Instead, one ordinary action inspires the next. A lamp is lit. Grain is ground. Bread is baked. Water is carried. Tools are lifted. Boats are launched. Fields are entered. Children watch. Elders teach. The Nile flows. And together these simple acts become another peaceful morning in a civilization that has learned, over centuries beyond counting, that true endurance is rarely born from extraordinary moments, but from ordinary people returning each day with calm hearts, willing hands, and quiet faith in the familiar rhythm that has always carried them gently from one sunrise to the next. The morning grows brighter with gentle certainty. The sun rises a little higher above the eastern horizon, and its first warm light spreads across the wide valley. The coolness that rested over the fields before dawn slowly begins to fade, replaced by a comfortable warmth that will, many hours from now, become the heavy heat of afternoon. For now, the air is pleasant. The breeze carries the scent of wet soil from the irrigation canals. Freshly baked bread drifts through the village. Somewhere nearby, herbs have been crushed for the morning meal, adding a faint sweetness to the cool air. These familiar scents greet the people every day. No one stops to admire them for very long. They simply become part of morning itself. A farmer walks beside his oldest son toward a field planted with barley. The boy is no longer very small. His stride has become longer during the past few seasons. His shoulders have grown a little broader. Yet when he walks beside his father, he still glances from time to time at the older man's footsteps. Not because he is uncertain where to go. Because he has spent his whole life learning by watching. His father notices. Without saying anything, he shortens his stride slightly. The two continue together. Dust rises softly beneath their sandals. The path curves gently around a cluster of date palms before opening toward wide green fields. The barley moves quietly beneath the morning breeze. Each stalk bends a little. Then rises again. Thousands of tiny movements join together until the field seems almost like the surface of a calm sea. The father pauses. He studies the crop. He notices small differences invisible to someone passing by. One patch has grown a little taller. Another needs more water. Near the edge of the field, several birds have been searching for grain. Nothing here surprises him. He has watched these fields through many seasons. Every year teaches him something new. Every year reminds him of older lessons. He kneels and gathers a little soil into his hand. It crumbles slowly between his fingers. The moisture feels right. He smiles quietly. No words are needed. The earth has answered his careful attention. Nearby, the boy watches every movement. One day he will kneel exactly the same way. He may not even remember when he first learned it. Knowledge often arrives without announcing itself. It settles quietly inside a person through years of repetition. Across another field, two women gather bundles of flax. Their fingers move gently through the tall stems. The plants have reached just the right height. Too early, and the fibers will be weak. Too late, and they become coarse. Experience teaches these small differences. The women work side by side. Their conversation rises and falls softly. Sometimes they speak. Sometimes they simply listen to the wind moving through the plants. Silence has never felt uncomfortable between people who have shared many seasons together. A basket slowly fills. Then another. Each bundle is tied with simple cord. The work continues without hurry. Farther along the canal, an older man walks slowly with a wooden staff. He is no longer strong enough to spend long days lifting heavy loads. Instead, he checks the small gates that guide water into different fields. He knows every bend of the canal. He remembers helping dig some of these channels when he was young. Back then, the earth felt heavier. The baskets seemed larger. The days appeared endless. Now the same canal carries water just as faithfully as it did all those years ago. He bends carefully beside one gate. A few reeds have begun growing where they should not. He removes them one at a time. The work is slow. His hands no longer move as quickly. Still, they remain steady. The water begins flowing more freely. He watches it for a few moments before moving on. No one may ever notice what he has done. The canal simply works as it should. Often the best work leaves almost no sign that it was needed. The village itself grows busier as the morning continues. Smoke no longer rises only from ovens. Now it curls upward from small workshops where fires warm clay, soften metal, and heat water for different tasks. The potter begins turning his wheel once again. The steady circle has become one of the oldest rhythms in his life. His foot pushes gently. The wheel spins. His hands guide the cool clay upward. Slowly a vessel begins taking shape. Not because he forces it. Because he supports it. His thumbs press lightly from within. His fingers steady the outside. Too much pressure would cause the walls to collapse. Too little would leave them uneven. Balance is everything. A young apprentice sits nearby. He watches with complete attention. Yesterday he tried making a small bowl. Its sides leaned awkwardly. The rim became uneven. He felt disappointed. The potter simply smiled. He placed the clay back upon the wheel. They began again. Today the apprentice will try once more. Perhaps today's bowl will still lean a little. That does not matter. The important thing is returning to the wheel. Again. And again. Across the village square, a donkey waits patiently beside stacked baskets. The merchant loading them moves carefully from one side to the other. Heavy jars are balanced evenly. Bundles of flax are tied securely. Small sacks of grain are placed where they will not shift during travel. The merchant checks every knot. Then checks them once more. Someone watching from afar might think he is being overly careful. He knows differently. One loose rope can become many hours of unnecessary trouble. Good habits save effort long before problems appear. The donkey flicks its ears as another basket is lifted into place. It has walked these roads for many years. It knows the slow rhythm of travel. Morning departure. Steady walking. Rest beneath shade. Water at midday. Another stretch of road. Arrival before evening. The journey changes very little. Perhaps that is why it feels peaceful. Along the riverbank, women spread freshly washed linen across smooth stones to dry in the growing sunlight. The cloth shines almost white beneath the bright sky. A breeze lifts the corners gently before letting them settle once more. One woman smooths a wrinkle with the palm of her hand. Another folds dry pieces into neat bundles. Children help by carrying smaller cloths between the river and the baskets. They take their responsibilities seriously. Each folded cloth feels like an important task. Older family members encourage them quietly. No one expects perfection. Only care. Nearby, a group of fishermen returns earlier than expected. Their nets hold enough fish for the morning. They lift them carefully onto the shore. Silver scales catch the sunlight for just a moment before disappearing into woven baskets. One fisherman notices a loose knot in his net. He sits immediately beneath the shade of a palm. Repair comes before rest. Not because the tier is large. Because tomorrow will arrive sooner than expected. His fingers move almost without thought. Thread passes through fiber. The knot tightens. The net becomes whole once more. He smiles softly. Another small task completed. Another quiet preparation for another ordinary day. The hours continue passing almost unnoticed. The village settles into the familiar pattern that repeats through every season. Builders lift stone. Weavers guide thread. Scribes dip brushes into ink. Children fetch water. Elders share wisdom without long speeches. Farmers watch the sky, the soil, and the river with patient eyes. Each person moves within a rhythm learned over many years. No one believes that today's work alone will shape the future. They understand something gentler. Tomorrow depends upon today. Just as today depended upon yesterday. And yesterday rested upon countless days before it. The Nile glides peacefully beside them, reflecting the widening blue of the morning sky. Its current never appears impatient. It does not rush toward the sea. It simply follows the path it has always known. The people of Egypt quietly do the same, finding comfort not in constant change, but in the faithful repetition of ordinary work, shared meals, familiar roads, patient teaching, and calm hands that return each sunrise to the tasks that, over centuries beyond memory, slowly built one of the world's most enduring civilizations. The day has grown quiet once more. The last light has slipped beyond the western desert, leaving only a gentle glow upon the edge of the sky. One by one, the stars return above the Nile, just as they have for thousands of years. Their soft light rests upon the peaceful river, upon the fields now empty of workers, and upon the rooftops of humble homes where families have settled in for the night. The ovens have cooled. The tools have been cleaned and placed where they will be found again in the morning. The boats rest against the riverbank, rising and falling almost unnoticed with the gentle movement of the water. The canals carry only the quiet whisper of flowing water. The dusty roads hold no footsteps now. They wait patiently for another sunrise. Inside the village, the final lamps flicker softly. A mother checks once more that her children are sleeping comfortably. A father quietly sets his sandals beside the doorway, ready for another day that will begin before dawn. An elderly woman folds a simple linen cloth with hands that have repeated this gentle motion for more years than she can easily remember. Nothing feels hurried. Nothing asks to be finished. Everything simply settles into peaceful stillness. Far away, beyond the fields, the desert lies beneath the moon like a great sea of silent stone and sand. It has watched generations come and go. It has seen children become elders, and elders become memories carried only in the hearts of those who loved them. Yet the Nile continues to flow beside it, faithful as ever, carrying cool water through the warm valley with quiet certainty. Perhaps that is the true story of Egypt. Not only the story of kings whose names were carved into stone. Not only the story of temples rising beneath bright skies. But the quieter story of ordinary people. The farmer who rose before dawn because the fields were waiting. The baker whose hands shaped bread each morning before the village awoke. The fisherman who trusted the river one more time. The potter whose wheel turned slowly beneath patient hands. The scribe who carefully recorded simple harvests and quiet deliveries. The child who watched, learned, and one day repeated those same gentle tasks. None of them expected history to remember their names. Yet together they became history. Not through one extraordinary moment, but through countless ordinary days. Each sunrise welcomed familiar work. Each evening welcomed well-earned rest. Each season returned with its own quiet rhythm. Each generation accepted the patient wisdom passed down through careful hands and gentle example. Like threads woven into a single piece of linen, their lives joined together. One thread alone is delicate. Thousands together become strong. So it was with Egyptian civilization. Its strength did not come from rushing forward. It grew slowly, steadily, almost silently, through the peaceful repetition of everyday life. The river rose. The river fell. Seeds were planted. Bread was baked. Children laughed. Old stories were told beneath evening stars. Homes were repaired. Sandals were mended. Nets were woven. Grain was stored. Morning followed night. Night followed morning. Again. And again. And again. The centuries passed almost like the slow current of the Nile itself. Never hurried. Never truly still. Always moving forward with quiet purpose. Now the village has fallen asleep. The lamps have gone dark. The breeze moves gently through the reeds, making them sway with the same soft rhythm that has comforted countless nights before. Somewhere in the distance, water touches the riverbank with the faintest sound. The moon lays a silver path across the Nile. Above, the stars continue their patient journey across the endless sky. Nothing asks for your attention anymore. The fields can rest. The boats can rest. The workshops can rest. The people can rest. And perhaps, for a little while, you can rest too. Let the warm desert wind grow softer. Let the quiet river carry away the last busy thoughts of the day. Let the distant palms whisper gently in the night. Imagine the cool stone beneath your feet. The comforting scent of fresh bread lingering in the evening air. The peaceful sound of water flowing beside ancient reeds. The steady rhythm of a civilization built not by haste, but by patience. Not by noise, but by quiet devotion. Not by a single remarkable day, but by thousands upon thousands of ordinary ones. The Nile continues to flow beneath the stars. The village sleeps peacefully beside its banks. The night grows deeper. The silence becomes softer. And the ancient world, calm and unchanging beneath the gentle moonlight, slowly fades into the quiet embrace of sleep.